Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's so wonderful to be with you this morning. I am the Reverend William Levwood, affectionately known as Rev Lev. My pronouns are he and him. I'm so happy to be with you all this morning. Whether you are online or joining us in person, we're going to take a breath to center ourselves for worship. But before we do that, if you are in person, a reminder to silence your phones. Take a breath to center ourselves for worship. We open and welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoic tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on and their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all together shall one day know full justice.
Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Rankale, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm happy to be your worship associate today. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home where we inspire each other to live our values. Together we care in community, grow in spirit, and act for justice. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or somewhere in between, we are delighted that you decided to join us today. Welcome. I hope you got a name tag or have put your name on your Zoom name tag. We encourage everyone to stay for our social hour immediately after service.
All right. I threw a little curveball to Ren on her first time out with the Reciprocity. I just want to say that I was once doing a reading and I got to a word and I wasn't sure how to pronounce it and I said superlatives. And then it was in there again and I said superlatives, and as soon as I sat down I realized what some of you have figured out by now, which is that I should have said superlatives. So it happens to all of us. You did better than I did, in fact. All right, I'd like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and also to grab the bookmarks that should be in all your hymnals, okay? Because we're going to say together our chalice lighting words, which are words from our new proposed new values. Make sure I have the right mic on before I step away from the pulpit. So this is going to be on the screen, but also I think this is kind of cool. So once we get to this part where we're saying what the value is, that's on this side, we're also going to say what we covenant to, or what we're called to do that. And so even if you're just using your bookmark, you can look at help everyone flourish, and then you can turn it over and read the red line and by building accessible and inclusive communities, okay? So you can go back and forth, or you can look at the screen. So with that, let's say our chalice lighting words together. We'll start with these words on the screen. Love is at the center of Unitarian Universalism. Love is the practice of our living tradition. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant to help everyone flourish by building accessible and inclusive communities. Let's go slow so we can do the flip. Honor the web of life by protecting earth and all beings. Be beloved community by dismantling racism and all oppressions. Cultivate generosity by sharing our faith, presence, and resources. Celebrate diversity by embracing our differences with love and respect. Transform the world with love by growing together spiritually and ethically. So this month, our theme is interdependence. So next Sunday in our service, we're going to celebrate Earth Day and explore how we can be what's called climate communicators, or what I think of as environmentalists. Environmentalists. That's people who make our climate actions go viral, make them bigger by sharing them with others. So that's what some of what we're going to explore next week for our Earth Day Sunday service. Last Sunday, we looked at a certain kind of a pyramid scheme, a hierarchy that we can fall into in our thinking that's been promoted, particularly in Western civilization, of placing humans in a hierarchy above nature, and how that also leads us to other hierarchies like placing men above women, reason above emotion, and so on. So we explored that last week, and we put forth an alternative worldview where we celebrate the gifts of every being and of every body and of our own bodies. So this Sunday, we're going to continue that exploration on our theme of interdependence. We're going to focus on the reciprocity of giving, how Earth supports and sustains us, and how we're called to give back. And speaking of reciprocity, the reciprocity of giving, our pledge drive starts today. Anybody notice that? You got this? This should have been handed to you. Our pledge drive starts today. The theme is Draw the Circle Wide, emphasizing how we care for each other in this circle, and have a calling to reach out and share our UU faith with others. How our UU faith is a life-saving, heart-filling, world-changing message and community that we can share with others. So let's celebrate how we support each other, how this community is a community of reciprocity, where our giving reverberates back onto us, and where the gifts of each person is nurtured and celebrated. And you might notice we're riffing off the Olympics with our theme. These words here are the words of our mission statement. One word each to celebrate our mission statement paired with the Olympic rings. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. Who wants to get a gold medal? Come on, who wants to get a gold medal? Dream bigger. All you have to do to get a gold medal is pledge in the next 2 weeks. Oh, Connie has already pledged, and she's got a gold medal. She says she wins, but you can also win with a gold medal if you get yours in the next 2 weeks. You may be seated. As Ashley comes up, I'll mention one more thing about the pledge drive that I didn't mention, which is we're encouraging everyone to increase your pledge by 5 to 10%. We made over $300,000, our biggest pledge drive ever last year, and our goal for this year is $320,000. So to do that, we need people to raise their pledges by 5 to 10%. I won't ask Connie how much she raised hers to, but you can also get gold medals. Now, your gold medals are just for participating, but we encourage you to raise your pledges.
Good morning. So this morning's Time for All Ages is a Own Voices Native American picture book story. A modern Wabanaki girl is excited to accompany her grandmother for the first time to harvest sweetgrass for basket making. Musquan must overcome her impatience while learning to distinguish sweetgrass from other salt marsh grasses. But slowly, the spirit and peace of her surroundings speak to her, and she gathers sweetgrass as her ancestors have done for centuries, leaving the first blade she sees to grow for future generations. This is a sweet, authentic story from a Maliseet mother and her Passamaquoddy husband that was selected for the Notable Social Studies 2022 list and named to ALA Notable Children's Books of 2022. There's going to be some tongue twisters in here, so wish me luck, Rin. Okay. The First Blade of Sweetgrass by Suzanne Greenlaw and Gabrielle Frey, illustrated by Nancy Baker. As grandmother's blue truck crested the hill, Musquan saw the ocean for the first time that day. The water's surface sparkled in the sunlight. "Look, Ukomi, is this where we pick sweetgrass?" Musquan asked excitedly. "Yes, Musquan," grandmother said. "Sweetgrass grows in the salt marsh where the river meets the ocean." My grandmother brought me here when I was a girl. She was my first sweetgrass teacher. Every summer I would help her pick sweetgrass to weave into her baskets. Our people have been coming here to pick sweetgrass for generations. We call it Wele Mahaskell, and we use it in ceremony as well as baskets. Sweetgrass is a spiritual medicine for us. Walking into the marsh, Musquan saw the grass dance with the wind. All the grasses shone bright against the sun. "Ukomi, how will I tell which grass is sweetgrass?" she asked. "All the grass looks the same." "I'll show you, Tuss," said grandmother, "but then you must try to find it on your own while I pick enough sweetgrass for the baskets I will sell next summer." Grandmother stopped in the shade of a tree and put down their bag. "This is where we'll pick," she said. "It's important to remember that we never pick the first blade of sweetgrass we see. If we never pick the first blade, we will never pick the last one. We must make sure there will be sweetgrass here for the next generation." "Come here, Tuss," grandmother said. "Bend down and look at the grasses closely. Sweetgrass has a shiny green tassel and blades and a purple stem, and it gives itself to you. If you tug lightly on a piece of sweetgrass, it will let go. If you have to pull hard, you are not pulling sweetgrass." "I see it, Okami," Musquan said confidently. "I know how to pick sweetgrass." Musquan got down on her knees and was enveloped by grass. She could see her grandmother's head through the tips of the tall grass. The air felt cooler close to the ground, and the thin whine of mosquitoes grew distant. Musquan looked for the purple-stemmed sweetgrass, but all the grasses looked the same. Frustrated, she started to pull at any stem she could reach. Some broke off where she tugged. Others pulled out of the soil. Musquan stood up with a handful of grass. "Ukami, look at all the sweetgrass I picked," she said. Grandmother smiled. "Tuss, that is a good first try, but that's not sweetgrass. I'll show you again." She knelt beside Musquan and said, "First, you have to look at the different grasses and get to know them. Do you see this grass with a thick stalk and a light green color? That's not sweetgrass. This plant has a small white flower. That's not sweetgrass either. Sweetgrass is a shiny emerald green with a purple bottom. Sit here and take your time. Your ancestors are here with you. My grandmother is here with you, helping you." Musquan sat in the cool air and watched the colors of the grass shift with the wind. A large bird flew into the marsh, then glided onto the water. She looked at her grandmother and saw that she had already picked a lot of sweetgrass. Musquan closed her eyes and thought about her grandmother as a little girl in this very same place. She thought about her ancestors here in the marsh. Slowly, the smell of sweetgrass drifted by her. It was the same sweet hay smell that was in her grandmother's basket room. Musquan opened her eyes and smiled. In the distance, she could see her ancestors picking sweetgrass in the marsh with her. She looked down at the grasses again. The beautiful emerald green color of sweetgrass popped out from all the other grasses. She could see it. Musquan reached eagerly to pick the first blade of sweetgrass she saw, but then stopped. Remembering her grandmother's words, Musquan reached past the first blade of sweetgrass and tugged lightly on the next one. She felt the roots let go of the soil as the grass gave itself to her hand. "Look, Ukomi, I have sweetgrass," Musquan exclaimed. "Kuli kaset, tus." "That's right," grandmother said. "Next, I will teach you how to braid sweetgrass for baskets." Musquan picked while cat's paws of wind chased each other in darker fans on the blue sky. She was excited to get home and show her parents all the sweetgrass she had picked. Perhaps next summer she could teach her younger sister, Alamoset, how to pick sweetgrass.
I invite Elizabeth White to share a pledge testimonial this morning.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm here to share a pledge testimonial about pastoral care. So last year I shared a pledge testimonial that was really around why we chose Accotink as our church home. We chose it because we knew that this was a welcoming and inclusive environment, and it matched my values, and I wanted to raise my children in a church that was just like that. So this year I want to share something as well that's really important to me that I've had the opportunity to take care of, and that is pastoral care. So pastoral care isn't something that I've ever experienced in a church that I was involved in before. I was raised Catholic, so I think like the closest thing I could say was like confession was like the closest thing I ever got to talking to, but that's not exactly the same, right? So pastoral care is unique because it's not like a conversation with your best friend, how that can be like helpful, and it's not a conversation with your therapist, but it's something different. So it's a conversation with someone who really cares a lot about our church community and about all the individuals in the church community, and just helping them to work through whatever challenges they might be going through. The other great thing about pastoral care is it was on my terms. So I was asked, do you want to follow up? I reached out and I got a really prompt response from someone. I've reached out multiple times and been helped adequately to make some important decisions and to work through some difficult times in my life. And I can tell you that it really was a transformational part of me moving forward around some things that were pretty difficult for me. I'm thankful to be able to expand my support network. So I have great kids, I have a great family support system, I have a therapist, and I have great friends, but this pastoral care thing added an element that was missing for me, and it really kind of rounded out a support network for me. So we know that our church community thrives on people volunteering their time, their talent, and their treasure, right? And so I'm glad to volunteer now as part of the pastoral care team, and I want to give back in that way that was given to me. And I'm looking around and seeing like the choir, our worship associates. We have so many people who volunteer their time and talent, and we know that this is, the pledge campaign time, and so it's just really important for us to also volunteer that third element, which is treasure. So please make sure you look at your budget. If you're one of those folks who wants to get the gold medal, whether that matters to you or not, take a look at your budget and see if there's a way that you can give an ongoing contribution to our church community, because it really is what makes this a great place to come to church and learn together. So, thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We'll be having somebody share about different aspects of this community and how we support each other and how we work for change in the world as well each week during our pledge drive.
Robin Wall Kimmerer, I don't know how to say that, from Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. Cultures of gratitude must also be cultures of reciprocity. From each person, human or no, is bound to every other in a reciprocal relationship. Just as all beings have a duty to me, I have a duty to them. If an animal gives me its life to feed me, I am in turn bound to support its life. If I receive a stream's gift of pure water, then I am responsible for returning a gift in kind. An integral part of a human's education is to know those duties and how to perform them.
So in our story this morning, the child was told and then remembered not to take the first blade of sweetgrass. Because if you never take the first blade of sweetgrass, then we will never collectively, communally take the last. Robin Wall Kimmerer suggests that our first responsibility, and she emphasizes placing our mind, our focus, our intention on responsibility as opposed to rights. So she says that our first responsibility is gratitude. In our new proposed UU values, the value of generosity says we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. It makes me wonder why hope was included in that statement. Robin Wall Kimmerer suggests that the first responsibility is gratitude because gratitude creates an ethic of sufficiency, because gratitude turns us towards the experience of contentment. And in that experience of knowing that the abundant world is sufficient and experience the contentment that comes from that gratitude and that acknowledgement, that gives us hope. That opens us up in hope, and it also opens the door to reciprocity. When we trust that we have enough, when we feel the contentment that comes from acknowledging we have enough, then generosity is born within us. Because gratitude brings forth both empathy and agency. Both empathy and agency. When we feel gratitude, we feel connected to the beings around us. We share in their joyful flourishing. We suffer with them in their suffering. We experience our investment in them and their well-being. And this empathy calls us to action. We are called to care for, protect, support, and nurture other beings. That reciprocity begins with gratitude, and it begins with a relationship, with relationships of mutuality and interdependence. When we acknowledge with gratitude all that we receive from nature, it can lead us to ask ourselves, in that relationship, how can we give back? Gratitude is the first responsibility because from gratitude flows contentment and connection, which nurtures in us a spirit of generosity and hope, which opens us in empathy and calls us to act on behalf of other beings. Justice flowing from our connection, flowing inspired by our empathy, joining us with other beings so that we experience our interdependence. The active form of which is reciprocity, the commitment, the covenantal commitment to give back to those who give to us. There's a really amazing thing about sweetgrass. And I imagine it may not be true only about sweetgrass, but there have been studies done, Robin Wall Kimmerer shares this as well, comparing how well sweetgrass grows in a field where it's left untouched, where it's not harvested at all, and where it's harvested and some of it is left. And here's the thing, it actually grows more when it's harvested. Sweetgrass, you could say, loves to be harvested. It wants to be in relationship with us. When we harvest sweetgrass, when we take sweetgrass, it's like the sweetgrass says, oh, you need this? Okay, I'll make more. It makes me wonder what happens if we apply this wisdom to our human relationships. What happens if you apply this wisdom to your engagement with this congregation? When you are asked to give your gifts, just like sweetgrass, I can hear you saying, oh, you need this. Okay, I will give more of it. I know that happens. And when we ask someone else to give their gifts, just like sweetgrass, that person responds. Their very body says, oh, you need this? Okay, I'll make more of it. So our responsibility to others in general and to our fellow journeyers in this congregation is to give, but not only to give. It's to learn each other's gifts and ask each other to give those gifts. And show our gratitude, both by saying thank you and by reciprocating and giving our own gifts. We need each other. We need each other for those times when we need support, but we also need each other because we need to experience giving our gifts, because we need to be needed. Just like sweetgrass, we grow more abundantly when our gifts are harvested. We want to be in relationship with each other, in sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality, and justice. That language is from the interdependence value of Unitarian Universalism. In sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality, and justice. This is so important. In his 1983 book, Lewis Hyde, the book is called The Gift, Imagination, and the Erotic Life of Property. Lewis Hyde writes about the difference between a consumer-based economy and a gift-giving economy. He points out how a consumer economy is designed to avoid relationship. A consumable costs a certain amount of money. I pay that money to the seller, and there's no debt between us. The relationship is over. I get the goods, they get payment for the goods. We never have to see each other again. In contrast, a gift-based economy is an economy where we are meant to be perpetually in debt to each other. I'm supposed to feel like I owe you something, and you're meant to feel like you still owe me something too. That debt between us keeps us bound together, interwoven in relationship, and it calls us to continue to share our gifts with each other, share the gifts of ourselves with each other. There's an amazing illustration of this in Robert Altman's film, Cookie's Fortune. In what's nearly the opening scene, after the main character, Willis, leaves a bar for the evening, he actually breaks into his friend Cookie's home. You see him crawling in through the window and falling a little drunkenly onto the floor. It wakes up Cookie, and she comes down and says, "Willis, you scared me half to death. What are you doing?" Willis says, "I promised you that I would clean your guns." She has a collection of guns. "Tonight. I promised you I would do it tonight. So here I am." Cookie says, "Willis, it's 1 a.m. You know what that means? It's not tonight anymore." She says, "Cookie, 846. Willis, 712. They've been keeping score of the ways that they support each other. And by not showing up when he said he would, he lost a point, or Cookie gained a point. Cookie, 846, Willis, 712. She then proceeds to ask him where he's been, and he says, well, I had to go over to Manny's to help, and she interrupts him. She says, I know you were at Theo's, that's the name of the bar. I can smell you from here. And since he lied, she says, Cookie, 847. They hang out while Willis cleans the guns, Cookie smoking a pipe. She shares that she hadn't been able to sleep anyway. She'd been staring at the wall for 3 hours. They're chatting. Willis is helping Cookie with a crossword puzzle. He knows all the answers. And then Willis tells a story in response to something Cookie says about a time when he was out of town in Detroit, and so he couldn't take Cookie to a funeral, and she wrecked his Chrysler. And he says, Willis, 713. Cookie says, well, you can't count that again. You already counted it. And Willis says, I'm counting it again. So the point of their keeping score is not for one of them for them to trade places and one of them to win. The point is the exact opposite. The point is like a gift economy. The point is for them to stay indebted so that they'll keep playing the game, right? Which is just a fun way to ritualize their connection, their relationship with each other. So again, our responsibility to others in general and to our fellow journeyers in this congregation is not only to give, but to learn others' gifts and to ask them to give those gifts, to create this interwoven gift economy of shared debt, of shared giving, of shared generosity. And we also have a responsibility to know, to learn what our gifts are and how to give those. That's also our job to do. It's our job to do that for each other, but it's our job to do that ourselves. In fact, Robin Wall Kimmerer tells a story of when she was hanging out with some Potawatomi elders. She had just gotten her PhD, and they were teasing her, she says, about spending her whole life in school. And they ask her, so what does it mean to be educated? She shares that she talked about learning to learn, creativity, about learning to problem solve. And then the elders responded. They said, well, that's not quite how we would answer this question. That's not quite how we would answer this question of what it means to be an educated person. An educated person, they told her, is someone who knows their gifts. What are my gifts, and how shall I give them to the world? That's what it means to be an educated person. To know your gifts and to know how to give them. So in this gift economy that we have made together, that we are making together, you know, I often think about how amazing it is that we have pledges, not dues. So if you pledge $100 a year, or you pledge $20,000 a year, you're entitled to all the same privileges in this community. It's kind of like an insurance policy and social democracy all wrapped up together. We know that sometimes we're going to be able to give more, whether that's in money or in time or in gifts, and sometimes we're going to need others to carry us on their backs. We're going to need others to give more, but regardless, wherever place you are in your life, however much you're able to give, whether it's of time or through your pledging, we're all here sharing the gifts. We're all indebted to each other. We're all tied together in that giving. And then we see the world and each other not as resources to be used, but as gift giving, as the act of gift giving and receiving. Wall Kimmerer says, what if instead of having a department of natural resources, we had a department of earthly gifts? How might that change how we approach our relationship with the natural world? How might it help us to move from being humans as consumers to humans as citizens, from an extractive economy to a regenerative economy? So I leave you with this. Ask, what does the earth ask of you? Ask, what does this community ask of you? And the general answer is to be givers, not passive takers, to be in relationship, to engage the rest of the living world not as a warehouse full of things, but as our family, as persons, as teachers even. We know that we're in the midst of a climate crisis. We know that we could say, broken the earth. And we know that all of us are broken as well. So Wall Kimmerer points out, though, that it's not just the earth that's broken, it's our relationship with the earth that's broken. And what that means is that when we heal our relationship with earth and all beings, we are also healing ourselves. The healing is reciprocal. The repair is reciprocal. The restoration is reciprocal. And no matter how broken the earth is or how broken we are, still the earth gives to us abundantly, and still we can give, sometimes even from our brokenness, to care for, support, and sustain each other. So may it be so, and may we be among those who make it so. Amen, 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 and blessed be.